501 Cast. Information you need from experts we trust.
Okay, so welcome to our discussion about the different staffing models associations use. We are a collection here of people utilizing all different methods of management, from AMC managed to AMC supported, or what people call hybrid, full captive staff. And then I don't know if anyone on here is fully volunteer managed. I didn't hear anyone say that, but that would be the fourth really widely known way of managing associations. I'm Kristen Bennett. I'm just one of many AMC involved people on this call. We have representation from association captive staff, people working in hybrid and AMCs, and even some recruiters. And I just want to open the conversation here on, I think what Brent Ling was asking is, what are the pros and cons of captive staff versus contracted staff and or the hybrid model? And maybe I'll just, to get started, call on a couple of people to give their quick top of mind thoughts. And then I would ask that we each keep our comments to a couple minutes so that everybody has a chance to sort of chime in. And I'm going to just randomly pick on people. I'm going to start with Gregory Brooks.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And thanks for organizing this, Kristen. Appreciate it. My pleasure. I'd like to just mention something about trends that we're seeing at our AMC. We serve as a full service management company to about 5 clients. We have another 10 clients that are, we do a portion of their organization, but none of them have staff up until about a year and a half ago, and that changed. And now half of the work that we do is for standalone associations that have staff. During the pandemic, we started seeing a great demand for AMCs because many associations were letting staff go and they didn't have the means to pivot quickly to virtual meetings. And we had the expertise to do so. So we served as basically their virtual meeting planning departments. We're seeing even more. I mean, our phones are literally ringing off the hook with associations saying, we need help, we need help. And what we've also managed to do is we're employing displaced association executives because they're no longer working. And so now we're giving them a place, and we're starting off part-time, and we're starting to transition some to full-time to meet that demand. So that's a little bit about trends that we're seeing. And the AAMC Institute, which we're members and volunteers of, we've actually written an article recently on this subject, and just letting associations know that there are AAMCs. We don't need to manage your entire association. If you need help, we're here to provide services.
Sorry, I had to remember to unmute myself there. Thank you for that, Greg. Specifically, a lot of associations are considering management changes really because of financial hardship or impact, maybe due to COVID or other reasons. But I guess, Colleen, I guess I'll pick on you next. Specific to the financial pros and cons of different management methods, do you have a comment around that consideration, which I think we're probably all hearing a lot right now?
Yeah, and thanks for the opportunity to share some thoughts. I have a little bit of a, I don't want to say twisted, I'll say maybe different perspective in that I spent about 25 years in standalone organizations, and I'm now with an organization that was with an AMC, got big enough to go on their own, had a couple stumbles and is now back with an AMC. So they've kind of experienced the full boat of it. And I think what we're seeing is that associations really want to know that there's that one person, whether it's the ED or the CEO title, that's constantly thinking and worried about them. But they're more open to, I think, an outsource and matrixed model. So I've had, many people say to us, we've got the one seminal event a year. Do we really need a meeting staff on for 12 months? Is that an area much like finance where we can buy according to need? So I think that's the debate that I'm seeing, and whether it's COVID or whether COVID caused people to look at their business model, or if you weren't strong and a lot of your revenue was coming from that seminal event, I think people are looking at the finances differently and really looking at, what do I need to own and what can I possibly rent?
Great, thank you. I will chime in a little bit on stability and flexibility. That's one of the things. So our company is, I'd call us kind of medium sized. We are an AMC. We manage 13 associations, and we do partial services, so a hybrid model for some and full management for others. And if someone would put your hand up, if you are an AMC and you only do full service, like you do not do, okay, so Anna is one AMC that is, okay, and also Kurt, you do purely full management. We were that way for a while, but have just morphed into both. And one thing I can say is that with COVID and the need to be flexible, we have two associations that were hit directly and very hard with their bottom line. Just their revenue was cut in more than half. And I guess one of the pros of being an AMC is that we didn't have to lay off their staff, and that's one of the biggest things, is that I just redistributed people. We had to cut back their staffing. They knew it had to happen, but they were so glad to not lose their point person and their web administrator. They did not have to make those tough decisions. I've redistributed the staff to other clients who, interestingly, have grown because of the pandemic. So I think what it illustrates to me is that that flexibility that you get with contracted staff. So having said that, I would love someone to put your hand up and speak about the downside of contracted staff, because I don't want to sit here sounding like that's the only way to go. Has anyone had an experience where it really was just very clear that captive staff was crucial to the survival and mission of an association? There has to be a story. One thing I hear a lot is when people say, well, if you're a dentist, you won't know what we're talking about. And the answer to that, as we all know, is like, you don't have to be a professional in the trade to know how to run an association. But Carrie, do you have a comment on that? I saw you put your hand up.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. I don't have a war story to share, but simply years of experience of turnover in staff. I mean, I've been with a number of AMCs that the staff that have been assigned to our case, not our case, our association, it's just not always a good fit. And so the turnover sometimes is higher until you find the right fit. And because I'm not doing the hiring, but they report to me, it sometimes is challenging to get the right fit. And so I will say that having captive staff is very important for an association, for that continuity, for the longevity, for the association to have that staff champion or champions along the course of their association. And whether it's an AMC or just a contracted HR person, finance person, you don't always get the investment in the mission from contractors that you do with captive staff. So I think having the combination of both really suits well. I wouldn't ever give up having captive staff.
Great, thank you. So you're a big fan probably of captive/hybrid for sure. It
I'm a
sounds.
big fan of that, yeah, especially as a small association. I mean, all the benefits of COVID and the versatility of staffing. It's been very beneficial. I am much more able to stay out of the weeds because I have competent staff who can do that. I mean, whether they're paid by the association or paid by the management company, I try not to get caught up in who the paycheck is. If they're on the association, they've bought into the mission, they're going to do what's right, then I don't need to micromanage anybody. And I can do the things I need to do externally.
Yeah.
That I need to do.
Fran.
I was interested to note that there was one particular criteria of working with AMCs that was not discussed, and that is the higher level of expertise that is available to the smaller association. You can't buy, 1/10 of a website developer, or consistently. You can do it on a project basis, but when the website is done being redesigned, and 4 months later, after you've used it, and you want to go back, and you've got some committees say, well, this really needs to be tweaked. We're able to provide our clients with a higher level of expertise than what you were, than if you were relying solely on in-house staff. And the other thing is that oftentimes during our staff meetings, we problem shoot for our clients, and we say, what, someone needs a different thing than what they have. And so we take a look, and then we say, where is our model? We don't offer cookie cutter solutions, but is there something that this other organization is doing that can be applicable, that we've already figured out what the pitfalls are? And I also have to tell you, we've had one client for 26 years. We've had other clients for 10 to 15 years. And we are offering them continuity and their corporate history way more. We took over one client that had gone through 4 association executives in 5 years. They had no continuity, and their board was always in the operational weeds, never on the strategy, because they needed to make sure that their pretty complicated rules and policies were being followed. I've rambled. I apologize.
No, that's fine, Fran. Thank you. I want to do one thing quickly and then ask Cheryl to say something, but I know that Brent only has about 5 minutes, and he was the one that had this question. So Brent, is there a burning question you want to ask this group before you have to leave on the half hour?
I did not come prepared with that, actually.
Oh.
I've been sitting, listen, and I don't necessarily think I have one. Like, I think, the content that was provided in the forum, as well as here and in some of my side conversations, has really given me a much clearer picture than when I asked the question. So
Okay.
I don't have one for the group. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to add one thing, and then I'm going to call on Cheryl, and then I'm going to call on Kurt. One thing I always like to say is, we talk to associations about, if you have, say, $100,000, don't go hire one person for 6 figures, because you don't want that person developing your strategy and maintaining your Facebook page, right? I mean, you gotta like divvy out those chores, nor do you want to hire probably 5 part-time people, right? And so when we start talking in that regard, the light bulb always comes on, like, oh wow, okay, I can get a social media expert but I don't have to worry about their job security. And then the executive on our association gets to focus on executive level things. They are not reconciling the QuickBooks. The accountant does that. So it's this kind of cost sharing, like, package of skills that can be contracted under a captive exec or as full management. So let's see here, Cheryl, would you chime in, please? And then
Yeah, I wanted, you know, as the ED, as a consumer of an AMC, just to give you the, I've been in the role at 5.5 years, but I came from the industry. So I had absolutely no executive director experience, but I came from the industry and I had served on the board that I now work for. I'm going to say this too. I had never heard of AMC, thought it was just the theaters until about 5 years ago when I started. So we got the AMC in place of a smaller AMC that has about 15 clients. I think if they listen to this, they'll probably get mad at me. I think they do. But we're a hybrid situation where I'm the ED and then we contract with them. And I feel like I would never have anything negative to say. I mean, all of the things that Fran said, I didn't have that association executive experience. So being able to tap in to a company who had that experience for multiple, you know, industries, et cetera, was amazing. And I was the second ED. The first one was a failed ED. I'm the one that was on the search committee when we actually hired her. So, but the organization is 35 years old. So it was an operational board, you know, the whole way. So it was just a perfect fit to come on, industry experience with the culture, et cetera. I don't think the AMC ever truly understands the culture of the industry, but close enough. And I wouldn't have it any other way. The one thing I do have to do every year is to convince, you know, the rotating about 4 new board members that come in is why we have that budget line of $66,000.
yeah, and after we hear from Kurt, I want to talk real briefly about that budget line. So don't let me lose that thought, because some of you people might know how important it is to allocate that management fee across the programming areas, which is probably a whole nother meeting. But Kurt, you had your hand up.
I think that's an interesting jumping off point, Cheryl. I was just thinking about, I think the desire to have captive staff is related to wanting to kind of have control over the culture and have control over, and also I think another part is to ensure that you have that subject matter expertise. Like a lot of associations will go with people who have been in the field rather than people who have experience with like websites or social media or whatever they're trying to achieve. But it's interesting to me because there is a good amount of turnover in volunteer boards and there isn't a ton of consistency there necessarily in these groups. So it's weird to have a desire for, I guess the desire for that continuity comes somewhat from the fact that of the volunteer nature of boards being like, well, we don't have that much continuity, so we want there to be staff that has that. But I think depending on what AMC you work with, you can find that with an AMC, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, I'll bring up another point, and then whoever wants to chat next, put your hand up. But one question I've gotten from an association before is like tied to that wanting the expertise, but not wanting to have any employees. And what we have done as an AMC before, and I don't know what other AMCs have done this, but we have hired what was captive staff to be on, you know, so they get their paychecks from me now, but they are continuous to the association, even though they have now better benefits, better compensation, and better job security. As an employee of our AMC, they still came from the industry and were that volunteer board member that got like somehow talked into being the director, and nobody wants to lose that institutional industry knowledge. We've done it twice now, and that is like a mad, the first time we did it, I was like, I don't even know if this will work. But when the employee wins and the association wins and we win a great employee, I don't know, has anyone else ever done that? Hired on? Yeah, Fran, you have?
I can tell you that one of the transitions that I managed this year, there was a problem with and I think my colleagues will get this, with the AMC, which really didn't meet AMCI qualifications. But they recognized that they had some content staff that had been with the association for a long time. And so in the request for proposal, we stated you had to be willing to consider hiring staff. And out of 20 staff people, they were grossly overstaffed, but they did indeed hire 3 or 4 key people and provided the continuity so that for 95% of the membership, because they were always talking to Lynette for membership, and they were talking to Becky for the foundation, and they were talking to Michelle for the program content. They continued to talk to the same people, but they had a much better organized organizational structure for the association. But again, another point I wanted to make, and I think Cheryl, you did it, and I'm not pointing a finger at you, I'm just pointing something out, and that is whether I pay a staff person or the AMC pays a staff person. It doesn't matter. The association is paying for the staff. And so, you know, that's a carryover. I've been in this industry long enough that my first boss had been a president of MAMI, and I don't think anybody on this call recognizes the Multiple Association Management Institute, which is what AMCI was called decades ago. And in my response to someone when they were asking, well, can I, you know, how can you devote yourself and you know, if you're a multi-association management company? And my response is, do you go to a multi-patient doctor? Do you use a multi-client attorney? And you do that. I had a hip replacement. I was talking with a friend of mine. My hip doctor does 500 posterior hip replacements a year. That's who I want to go to.
Right.
Someone who has that experience. And that's what AMCs bring to the table. And I'm telling you, I hear Cheryl and other people what you're talking about with culture. It's as important from the AMC side as it is from the association side. If you don't have a cultural fit, it's not going to work. It doesn't matter if you're captive or in-house staff or as staff working for an AMC.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. So I would love to stop here for a second and ask those of you on the call who are currently managing an association. Brent had to drop off, but who else has got a question? Matt is saying, there's tremendous pressure in the private sector for consolidation. The same is happening in our world. Your world, is that also happening with AMCs? I will just say my perception is that that may be happening, and I don't know if it's consolidation as much as it is an aging AMC owner population. I'm pointing at myself in that, you know, I've already got my transition plan laid out 10 years ahead. What do other AMC? So I would say my gut feeling is yes, there is some consolidation happening. I think there's always room for the very small AMC. I think most of us on this call are AMC Institute members, but who else has got a comment on that? Yes, Ms. Russell.
So hopefully you're pointing to me. So
Yeah.
2 comments along those lines. Everything that you just said, I totally agree with, that there is some changes going on in the overall AMC world. One of which is reflected in the AAMC Institute, that the Institute has been pushing for people to have their transition plan or their succession planning going, and that they're trying to recruit more junior attendees to come to the AAMC Institute events. So there's that aspect as well. The other thing which I found curious, because probably like Fran, I have been in this industry for 30 years, and I do remember MAMC and a lot of other organizations that have gone by the wayside over the years. And so a few years ago, our industry went through a cultural change or a change, and there was a lot of good old boys who had started some very lucrative AMCs, and they sold out. And, you know, kudos to them. But in many cases, those changes were at the deficit of their own clients and their employees. And that's really a shame because they walked away with, you know, some really nice purses or whatever you want to call it, golf carts full of gold, and other people didn't. So that transition did occur. And I think many of us who are still out there working and trying to make sure don't want to see that happen again. And so the industry, I wouldn't say it's a consolidation or a pressure to consolidate. It's a pressure to make sure that we really do have our ducks in a row and that we are complying with the standards that the Institute has put forward for all of us. And I think that all of us are working harder to make sure that that's the case, and that the pandemic, we've shown that through this pandemic, and the fact that many of our clients did have to had revenue challenges or financial challenges, and we've done things to sustain our staff and to create new opportunities for everybody. And just like Greg said at the very beginning, most of us have found ourselves even busier this year than we have in the past because we know how to pivot. That's what we do. That's what the advantage you have with an AMC. So I've probably gone on to a longer tirade with that than you anticipated, but there's a lot of backstories that a lot of us don't hear sometimes or don't openly share. And I think that where the AAMC Institute has taken our industry and what the overall industry is doing on behalf of our profession is wonderful. And, you know, we need to speak up about that more.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. When you mentioned pivoting, one thing we've discovered is that someone who can't multitask or cannot pivot is not a cultural fit normally for an AMC. That we are an entire staff of people who are like, okay, you know, like there's nobody that's going to be like, why can't it just be the same for a whole year? It's like, because that's not how it goes with nonprofits. Is anyone a fan of Joan Gary? Nonprofits are messy. We are huge fans. It's like, it just is. You're mixing volunteer experts with donated or contributed money, and then staffing, and the rules are different from regular business, but it's still kind of like a business. It does get messy. And I think of all, you know, we manage, one of the groups we manage is a human resources association. And when I look at one of the top qualifications for the people we employ, it is that ability to be flexible. And I would say most AMC owners are probably internally nodding, like, if you've got an employee that just only wants to do this one thing for the rest of their life, like, good luck, right? I did want to ask Thomas, because his board is in the middle of this whole consideration. This is probably the closest you can get to a really straightforward, straight talking group of people who will tell you what your board needs to know, whether it's AMC or not. Is there one question your board is really struggling with?
Well, not necessarily one question. We've had a good situation since 2011. We started with an AMC that I actually had some experience with prior to coming to the job I have right now. So I knew what their capability was, and I knew the quality of the staff and all that kind of thing. So it made it very easy to come to an agreement and to work with them. However, after about 4 years, they bought an AMC, or more of a communications company, not necessarily AMC, and they kind of featured themselves now as this AMC, managing a number of clients. And the problems we've had since that merger is that increasingly the parent organization wants us to shoehorn all of our operations into their systems. So we've been struggling to try to accommodate that request, but unfortunately, things like their data management systems and that kind of thing just don't work for us. Their management structure doesn't work for us. With a two-person organization like we are, we need to move pretty fast on things, and we can't be going through bureaucratic systems just because that's what works for the parent. So that's created some bad feeling. But having said that, we're looking now at some AMCs for full line management and hybrid proposals, and that would be my preference, to be in a hybrid proposal as opposed to going totally self-managed and having to take care of all the things myself.
Yeah. So let's see, Fran, go ahead, and then I have kind of a question to pose that might spark some robust stories or conversations.
Yeah, I just want to share with you that as important culture is with a fit between an AMC and its client, it is also important when an AMC is acquired by another AMC that there be a similar cultural fit. There was, I won't name names, but there was a disastrous merger between two AMCs in the late 80s, I think, or no, late 70s, early 80s, that failed spectacularly because every single client the one AMC brought under the umbrella of the other one left within 6 months. And as an AMC owner, we all know that the only value in our company is the contracts that we have with our clients. And I was speaking with a hotel sales rep who was located in the city that these two AMCs were. And he said, someone should have asked me. I knew that merger wasn't going to work because I know how both of those AMCs operated. And it was, 180 degrees. And I knew that wasn't going to work. So the cultural fit wherever you go is really important. Done.
That's a really good point. So I was going to just throw this out there, a win and a loss. And I know the wins are a lot easier to talk about. But as an AMC, I will throw out what I consider to be a loss. And I will also throw out why, in my perception, it happened. We took on a very small AMC, and within 30 days of signing the contract, the AMC is like, this is not for us, which was just a huge shock to me. I'm like, what? You don't love us? Everybody loves us. And when it came right down to it, we were their first paid staff, and the volunteers could not let go. They could not let go. And it broke my heart because I can see them still going around in a circle, with a bad website and the social media out of date. And I just felt so bad, but there was just such a fear of paying that monthly contract that they paid 1 month and then chickened out. I felt terrible. Does anyone else have something to counter that sad story that could be, well, a win or a loss, whatever, but I guess a tale of caution if you're an association that you got to make sure that you're ready to do it. It looks like Colleen has something to say.
There it goes.
There you are.
I wish I had like a happy tale, but I think it's a similar cautionary tale, and that is, you know, there's this wonderful natural tension between your volunteers and your staff. But for some reason, when it's an AAMC staff person, I think sometimes that natural tension can be a little bit different. And I think for boards that really thrive on really being in control and that being a pride point, you know, particularly if you look at some of the groups I've worked with have been surgeons and attorneys and accountants, folks that are very precise in their work. It is very hard for them to put on the governance hat and let go of the operations hat. And I've, you know, I've been through groups where we've coached them through and it's gone really well. And I've also been through groups where, you know, just what you shared, Kristen, they thought they were ready for that next evolution. And what they really feared was the organization becoming too staff strong, which is what they needed to evolve, unfortunately. So I think that that's a really good tale that you talk about. And it would be, I would really encourage anybody who's thinking about making this kind of a change to really spend some time doing some sessions to say, let's talk about how that first board meeting is going to feel. And how staff are maybe going to present where in the past it was all volunteers. Let's talk about it, you know, and role play that out a little bit so they're not just so darn shocked when in swoop in these very, you know, confident, competent professionals where this has been their baby for so long. So I think that you're given really good counsel, Kristen, and I've seen it work and I've seen it not work. And I think that's just, it depends if they're emotionally as well as intellectually ready for that kind of a change.
It's a really good point. Anna Kosova, I don't know if you've had opportunity. I'm kind of looking at the faces, but yours is
Yes.
game. Have
Well,
you got something you'd like that's dying to come out?
yeah, sure. So I was driving. That's why I turned off the video for a little bit. But I actually wholeheartedly agree with everything that Fran was saying. In terms of specifically the experience sharing, that, you know, we're a small MC. We only manage 4 clients, but we are so ingrained in their culture. We are so, you know, looking out for their interest. Our motto is we're all in this together, you know, and member come first in everything we do. So basically, if we're not succeeding for our associations, then we're going to fail too. So it's in our best interest to learn their culture, to learn their industry, to get ourselves educated in their industry. And we're never going to be subject matter experts, but we can get a little closer to it and we can, you know, learn the industry here and there. So I completely agree with the fact that it's also in our best interest to learn as much about our clients and their industry and their, you know, potential members, other industry players and things like that. And also the experience sharing. I mean, everything that you guys said about where everybody's doing everything and everybody knows how to do a little bit of everything. And you have to be versatile. You have to be flexible. It is a fast-paced environment. So I think AAMC is the way to go. Obviously, you know, I'm cheering for AAMCs, and I think this is a good model because we're all in this together and we have to succeed on behalf of our association in order to be successful.
Yeah, Greg.
I'd like to echo what Anna said, and I think sometimes there could be a perception that, you know, an AAMC is detached from an organization, but I mean, our clients have been with us 15, 20 years. This is my 40th year as an AAMC in one capacity or another, and we are as passionate for our groups because in the beginning when we're interviewing with groups, you know, it works both ways. They have to really fit within our culture. and our beliefs and our core values. And we only, I think, actually respond to, I think, maybe 3% of the RFPs that we see. So we're just not interested in being an AMC for everyone. And so we have specialties. We work with psychologists. We work with consultants. We've been working with them forever. I could probably give mental health counseling, although I'm not licensed. But you know, it's really interesting that you do become. Maybe we should be chameleons and not AMCs. I'm not sure, but I think that it's important to know that we do care about the mission of an organization, and we do get very involved with that because, you know, it's your passion. That's what you do. Yeah, you're doing, you know, websites and you're doing financial management and all that stuff, but we have a purpose too. And it's not just admin and a paycheck. It's really, you know, working for something that you truly believe in. I hope that.
Yeah, I'll add there as a balance to Anna's remarks and Greg. I don't know if you go by Greg or Gregory, but that after so many decades, you kind of are a subject matter expert. I mean, who'd have thought I would know more about building science than any one of my friends, right? But I do, because after you've run an association for 20 or 30 years and you have sat through every educational session they've got to offer, and honestly, it doesn't take a long time to really get the language and get the culture of the entire industry. But always still falling back on the board of directors, they are the actual members, they are the expert. That doesn't mean you can't speak their language and hold your own in an everyday conversation. I can't tell. Let's see. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to recommend to all of us, if you haven't ever looked at some of the information that's available through Glenn Tecker Associates. He's one of the gurus within ASAE, and he's written several books and everything, but he has this wonderful diagram. And I think at one end of the diagram is a mule, and at the other end of the diagram is an angel. And it really is trying to talk about how does your board perceive you, and what is your role as the executive director? Are you the servant that is lugging all the paperwork and everything else, or are you been put onto a pedestal because you know so much? So, you know, we all work within our cultures to bring on staff and to help our own staff do the things. But the role of the executive director with your board and having them understand how passionate you are about your work and about what you're doing and how they should perceive you. You know, that's one of the things you need to think about sometimes. And also for the people who are thinking about, you know, how am I going to be perceived if I work as a hybrid person, or what is my board going to think about this? Laying out that role expectation and revisiting it on a regular enough basis. And again, using this kind of, it's not a cartoon, it has other different phases in between it that Glenn has so nicely put together, is a great way to bring up that conversation. So just a tool that somebody might, you know, that you might want to think about. There's probably tons of other tools out there as well, but Glenn's does an excellent job with those types of things. So,
great, thank you. Well, I don't, we are 5 till the hour, and I did want to keep this under an hour if we could, or right at the hour. Has anyone else got something? You know, a lot of us did come from industry to association to AMC, looking around going, oh, there is such a thing. I thought it was my idea to contract to multiple groups. That's how I came about it, which is a really nice way to grow organically, right? From right in the trenches to leadership to multiple leadership roles. Who else has got anything to throw in? A pro, a con, a win?
I'm just wondering, does Matt have any questions? Because he's kind of got one foot in each arena. And
oh, that's a good way to put it. In fact, I view us as an organization, the National Sporting Goods Association, as a bit of an AMC. And so we've got 2 separate boards that we have to take care of. And the Ski and Snowboard Retailers Association is much more a hands-on type board than the board that I have at the National Sporting Goods Association. And so we get the opportunity to see, that whole spectrum of board member involvement, and it really does open a lot of windows for us.
Right. Well, I think I don't see anyone else with their hand up. Gregory just sent a message thanking for the networking opportunity. And if anyone is interested in doing this informally, I know that there are AMC chats and there are ASAE things, but if anybody ever wants to kind of keep a conversation like this going, like a drop-in thing, feel free to email me anytime. I'm happy to put it together. But thank you all for participating today. I will, let's see, I'm not sure. I guess in that chat on the ASC forum would be the place to drop a link for the recording. So I'll do that for anyone that might need it. And without further ado, we will sign off and thank you all for your input.
Thanks, everybody. It was nice meeting you.
Thank you.